Daniel and Emily, a young couple deeply in love, craved an escape from the city's clamor. The hustle and bustle of their daily lives had begun to take a toll on their relationship. They found themselves longing for a place where they could breathe freely, away from the constant noise and distractions of urban life. They yearned for a retreat, a place to reconnect with each other. After countless hours of searching online and flipping through travel magazines, they stumbled upon the perfect destination. A secluded cabin, far removed from the chaos of the city, seemed like the ideal spot to rekindle their romance. Their search led them to a secluded cabin, nestled deep within the woods, promising tranquility and solitude. The pictures they found online showed a charming wooden structure surrounded by towering trees, with a small creek running nearby. It was everything they had hoped for and more. The drive was long, the sun dipping below the horizon as they finally arrived. The journey took them through winding roads and dense forests, each turn bringing them closer to their peaceful haven. As the last rays of sunlight filtered through the trees, they felt a sense of anticipation and excitement. The cabin, shrouded in an eerie silence, felt strangely welcoming. The air was crisp and cool, and the only sounds were the rustling of leaves and the distant call of an owl. Despite the isolation, there was a comforting warmth to the place, as if it had been waiting just for them. A fire was already crackling in the hearth, casting flickering shadows that danced across the wooden walls. The cozy interior of the cabin was a stark contrast to the darkening forest outside. The warmth of the fire enveloped them, making them feel instantly at home. As they unpacked, a sense of unease settled upon Daniel, a prickling at the back of his neck. He couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Emily, on the other hand, seemed completely at ease, humming softly as she arranged their belongings. He dismissed it as city nerves clinging to the hope of a peaceful weekend. Determined to make the most of their time together, he pushed aside his worries and focused on the present. Little did they know their secluded getaway would soon take an unexpected turn, testing their love and resilience in ways they never imagined. The first night passed uneventfully. However, the silence of the woods was deceptive, masking a darkness that was slowly seeping into their haven. Emily, usually vibrant and cheerful, grew withdrawn. Her laughter, once a familiar melody, was replaced by an unsettling silence. Daniel noticed her unease. He tried to break through her silence, attributing it to the unfamiliar surroundings. But his attempts were met with vacant stares and mumbled responses. As the day wore on, strange occurrences began. Whispers seemed to emanate from the empty corners of the cabin, and objects moved inexplicably. The change in Emily was undeniable. Her gentle demeanor was gone, replaced by a chilling coldness. Her eyes, once sparkling with love, now burned with an unsettling intensity. She would stare at Daniel with an unnerving smile, her voice raspy and unfamiliar. One evening, as Daniel tried to hold her, she recoiled. "You don't belong here," she hissed, her voice a guttural rasp. "This is my home, Eleanor's home." Daniel watched in horror as the woman he loved transformed into something monstrous, her features contorted in a grotesque mockery of a smile. Desperate to understand Emily's transformation, Daniel began searching the cabin. The air was thick with dust, and the wooden floorboards creaked under his weight. Every corner of the cabin seemed to hold a secret, and Daniel was determined to uncover them all. He moved methodically, checking behind old furniture, peering into dark corners, and lifting loose floorboards. The cabin, though small, felt like a labyrinth of memories and forgotten stories. Daniel's heart raced with a mix of fear and anticipation. What had happened here? What had caused Emily to change so drastically? He had to find out. He discovered a hidden compartment beneath the floorboards, revealing a dusty old diary. The diary was bound in worn leather, its cover faded and cracked with age. Daniel carefully lifted it out, feeling the weight of the past in his hands. The air around him seemed to grow colder, as if the cabin itself was holding its breath. He brushed off the dust, revealing the name Eleanor Vance etched into the cover. Who was she, and what secrets did her diary hold? Daniel's hands trembled as he opened the diary, the brittle pages whispering against each other. Its pages, brittle with age, chronicled the tragic tale of Eleanor Vance, a young woman who had lived in the cabin a century ago. Each entry was a window into her soul, revealing her deepest fears and desires. Eleanor wrote of her dreams, her hopes, and the overwhelming sense of isolation that consumed her. She spoke of the beauty of the surrounding forest, but also of the shadows that seemed to follow her every move. The diary was more than just a record of her life. It was a testament to her struggle against an unseen darkness. Eleanor's entries spoke of a haunting isolation, of voices that whispered her name, and a darkness that consumed her soul. She described nights filled with terror, where the walls seemed to close in on her and the whispers grew louder. The candlelight flickered as Daniel read, casting eerie shadows on the pages. Eleanor's words painted a picture of a woman on the brink of madness, struggling to hold on to her sanity. She wrote of strange occurrences, of objects moving on their own, and of a presence that seemed to watch her every move. The more Daniel read, the more he felt a connection to Eleanor's plight. The final entry, scrawled in a shaky hand, revealed a chilling truth. Eleanor, driven to madness, had taken her own life within the cabin walls. Her words were filled with despair and resignation, a final cry for help that went unanswered. Daniel could almost feel her pain, the weight of her sorrow pressing down on him. The diary fell silent after that, the pages empty as if Eleanor's spirit had finally been broken. Daniel closed the diary, his mind racing with questions. What had truly happened to Eleanor? And was her spirit still trapped within the cabin, seeking release? Her spirit, it seemed, remained, seeking solace in a living vessel. The cabin, once a place of refuge, had become a prison for Eleanor's tormented soul. Daniel felt a chill run down his spine as he looked around the cabin, the shadows seeming to move and shift. He knew he had to find a way to help Eleanor, to free her from her eternal torment. The mist outside the cabin thickened, and Daniel could almost see a ghostly figure in the distance. The past and present seemed to blur, and Daniel realized that his journey was far from over. He had to uncover the truth and bring peace to Eleanor's restless spirit. Armed with the knowledge of Eleanor's tragic past, Daniel confronted Emily. Her body thrashed, her voice a chorus of whispers as if battling for control. He pleaded with Emily, desperately clinging to the hope that somewhere, deep within, a flicker of his beloved remained. "Emily, it's me, Daniel!" he cried, his voice cracking with fear and desperation. "Please fight it, don't let her take you." But his words were met with a chilling laughter. "She's already gone!" Eleanor's voice hissed through Emily's lips. "And soon you will be too." Daniel remembered reading about the power of salt to repel spirits. He rushed to the kitchen, grabbing a canister of salt and returning to the possessed Emily. With trembling hands, he drew a circle around her, creating a barrier between them. "Eleanor, I banish you from this place," he shouted, his voice echoing through the cabin. "Leave Emily and never return." As he spoke, he flung salt towards Emily, his heart pounding in his chest. The air crackled with unseen energy. The possessed Emily writhed and convulsed, her screams echoing through the cabin. Slowly the struggle subsided. Emily's eyes fluttered open, confusion clouding her gaze. She looked at Daniel, her voice a whisper. "Daniel, what happened?" she asked, her voice weak and trembling. Relief washed over Daniel. He embraced her tightly, holding her close as if she might disappear. "It's over, Emily," he whispered, hoping against hope that it was true. They fled the cabin that night, leaving behind the chilling presence that had haunted their weekend retreat. The air had been thick with an unspoken terror, a feeling that something was watching them from the shadows. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of the leaves outside had sent shivers down their spines. They had hoped that by leaving they could escape the grip of the unseen force, that seemed to lurk in every corner of the cabin. Back in the city, Emily seemed to return to her old self. She laughed with friends, went back to work and tried to immerse herself in the bustling life of the city. The familiar sights and sounds of urban life were a stark contrast to the eerie silence of the woods. It was as if the city's energy was slowly washing away the memories of that dreadful weekend. The harrowing events at the cabin faded into a distant nightmare. Days turned into weeks and the vivid images of the cabin began to blur. The city's rhythm was comforting, a constant reminder that life goes on. But deep down, both Emily and Daniel knew that some scars don't heal easily. Yet, a lingering unease remained, a shadow that clung to the edges of their lives. At night, when the city quieted down, the memories would resurface. The feeling of being watched, the inexplicable coldness, and the whispers that seemed to come from nowhere. It was as if the shadows from the cabin had followed them, blending into the city's own darkness. Daniel couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. He found himself constantly looking over his shoulder, expecting to see a shadowy figure lurking just out of sight. His sleep was plagued with nightmares, vivid and terrifying, always bringing him back to that cabin in the woods. He tried to rationalize it, telling himself it was just his mind playing tricks on him. Emily, though seemingly back to normal, had moments of vacant staring, her gaze distant and unsettling. She would often drift off in the middle of conversations, her eyes losing focus as if she was seeing something far away. Daniel noticed these moments and they filled him with a sense of dread. He wondered if she was seeing the same shadows that haunted his dreams. He tried to convince himself it was just trauma, the after effects of a terrifying experience. But the more he tried to dismiss it, the stronger the feeling grew. It was as if the shadows were alive, feeding off their fear and uncertainty. Daniel knew they had to confront whatever it was that had followed them from the cabin, or risk being consumed by the darkness that now seemed to be a part of their lives. Weeks later, while unpacking boxes, Daniel stumbled upon the old diary. As he reached for it, a cold shiver ran down his spine. He turned, his heart pounding in his chest, and glanced at the reflection in the window. Standing behind him, a shadowy figure with vacant eyes and a haunting smile stared back. It was Emily, but not the Emily he knew. The darkness, it seemed, had never truly left.